As in now? Yeah. Elizabeth Horvath. Sure. Let's do it now. Although the jury's on the way, so be fast.
Counsel's assured me that they will confine their questioning to Ms. Horvath solely about statements attributed to our client on a camping trip well over 20 years ago, and that questioning will not delve into their marriage relationship and any and all allegations stemming from that relationship. And they further told me that she has been admonished and advised not to go there.
Okay.
And I'm relying on that
Yes.
in not standing up and objecting as soon as she hits the stand.
I appreciate the record, actually, Judge, because I just talked to her in the hallway again. I've spoken to her on the phone multiple times, and I was very specific, no other acts evidence from their relationship, and I'm confining the testimony to that statement as counsel stated. So I've given her multiple admonitions.
All right.
And I'm glad the court's aware of that now.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's take a minute. Oh, so we're not ready yet. Okay. And this doesn't need to be on the record. Are you guys going to go do anything after Ms. Horvath, or is the next person short if she's that quick, or do you know?
I think she'll be a quick witness, and we have another witness available.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Right. We can be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I've assigned both sides homework for tonight before we finish the cross-examination of Mr. Brandon Redwine, so we're going to call him in. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people call Elizabeth Horvath.
All right. Ms. Horvath, come on up, please. Up to the witness stand. Raise your right hand before you sit down, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Have a seat.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Could you please start by introducing yourself by your full name to the jury?
My name's Elizabeth Jean Horvath.
And for the court reporter, could you please spell your last name?
Horv, Victor, H-E-H.
And ma'am, do you go by Betsy Horvath?
Yes.
Where are you from?
I currently live in Chandler, Arizona.
Did you previously live in Colorado
Yes, I did.
for a large part of your life?
Most of my life, yes.
Okay. And did you previously know a man named Mark Redwine?
Yes, I did.
Roughly when did you meet him?
In 1982?
Okay. And were you married to him?
Yes, I was.
All right. Is he here in this courtroom?
Yes, he is.
Could you please indicate where he's sitting and something he's wearing for the record?
He's sitting at the end of the table, the yellow shirt, gray suit, green tie.
Thank you, ma'am. Judge, I just ask that the record reflect that she's indicating the defendant.
Mr. Redwine's again been identified.
And ma'am, how many years were you married?
6.
Okay. And roughly, were you divorced at some point?
Yes.
And roughly when were you divorced?
Our divorce was August of 1990.
Did you have children together?
Yes, we did.
What were their names?
My oldest son is Nicholas Brandon Redwine, and our second son is Mark Allen Roser.
Okay. And did you know about the defendant's children in his second marriage?
Yes, I did.
What were their names?
Corey and Dylan.
And did you know Dylan?
Yes.
And can you just explain, had you met him before?
I believe I met him when he was a toddler, infant toddler, little boy age. And in 2010, my son Nicholas, Brandon, invited them, Elaine, Corey, and Dylan, to his house for Easter. And I was there for Easter.
Okay. I want to turn your attention now specifically to November of 2012.
Okay.
At some point, ma'am, did you become aware that Dylan Redwine was missing?
Yes, I did.
How did you become aware of that?
My son Brandon let me know.
Okay. Where were you when you found out?
I was in the Fry's grocery parking lot getting Thanksgiving dinner, last minute things.
Okay. Had you had much contact with the defendant over the years leading up to this point in time?
No.
When you heard that Dylan Redwine was missing, did that cause you concern?
Objection, relevance.
I'm not going to go much further, Judge, but it informs the very next thing that she did.
That much I think is okay.
When you heard that Dylan Redwine had gone missing, did that cause you concern?
Yes, it did.
Did you feel the need to call the police?
Yes, I did.
And was there a physical manifestation to what you were feeling when you heard that?
Objection, irrelevance.
Well, I can see where that could be relevant, because I think I know where this is going. So I'm going to overrule your objection. I'm going to overrule your objection.
How did you feel?
Sick to my stomach.
Did you, in fact, call the police?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, let me limit you. I want to talk about one particular thing, okay? When you called the police, did you, well, let me ask you actually differently. Do you now, as we sit here today, recall a statement that the defendant made to you years ago when you were married that caused you concern when you heard that Dylan Redwine was missing?
Yes, I do.
And did that have to do with where you thought that Dylan Redwine might be if the defendant had something to do with it?
Objection calls for speculation where you thought he might.
It's based on the defendant.
It's yes, I agree. It's based upon a previous statement. I know it was years ago. You might want to establish one, too.
I will, Judge. Absolutely.
All right.
Could you repeat that?
Yes. So, did you have concerns about a specific statement that the defendant had made during that time period when you were married that made you think of what he might have done with Dylan if he was involved?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So let's tell the jury what was the context and the time frame of him making that statement to you?
The children were young, and we had gone camping. We would go camping fairly often. In this instance, we had gone up on I call them a fire road, the ones where I guess we're not supposed to go. They're really scary, and I was afraid we were going to fall off the road. And we went camping. Once we got up to the campsite, kind of looking around, and he had made a comment that this would be a good place to leave the body.
Did he say why that'd be a good place to get rid of a body? Or did he say leave a body or get rid of a body?
Get rid of the body?
Okay. Did he say why it would be a good place to get rid of a body?
Because it was mountains and they're so vast. And nobody would ever find a body.
Okay. Did he make any mention of burying it or just say he would leave a body?
He did not make any mention.
Did you get the impression he meant bury it or just leave it out in the mountains?
I believe he would just leave it out in the mountains.
Now, this statement was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It would have been probably the late 80s, I'm guessing, by the timeline you already gave to the jury.
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me that people make comments all the time, sometimes joking?
Yeah.
Why was this different? Why did you recall this so much later?
Objection, Judge. Calls for speculation. The statement's out there. Her interpretation is irrelevant as to the jury's determination whether to weigh this evidence.
It's why it stuck with her, as long as it's limited as we've talked about them. I think you're okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
What about his demeanor and the way he said it and where you were stuck with you all those years later that you remembered it when Dylan went missing?
I believe it was the entire setting, the isolation of the location. It was getting dark. I was scared. We ended up sleeping in the truck.
So the comment itself, did that cause you to be scared at the time?
Yes.
Objection 401, 402, 403, and 404, Judge. Permission to approach.
You're not going any further, are you?
No, Judge, I'm just pointing out why she remembers it so much longer
All right,
after.
I'm going to overrule you, does that take care of this testimony?
I'm just going to ask, I'm going to switch a little bit to the report itself.
All right.
So the jury's heard the statement that you heard from the defendant, but did you in fact call the police and inform them and have an interview about where this statement was discussed?
Yes, I did.
When did you do that?
It was, I believe, Thanksgiving Day after Dylan went missing.
So is that roughly a few days after Dylan went missing?
Yes, I found out on Tuesday. I believe that would be the 20th. And I can't remember if I called on the 21st or 22nd.
Okay. And when you called in, an investigator called you back and you relayed this information?
Yes.
And are you aware of roughly when Dylan's remains were actually found?
In
Relevance, Judge.
What is the relevance of that?
I'll ask a different question, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Did you relay this information to law enforcement that if Mr. Redwine, did you relay the information to law enforcement that Mr. Redwine had told you you need to get rid of the body and leave it in the mountains? Did you relay that information to law enforcement before or after Dylan Redwine's remains were found?
Relevance.
That I think is relevant.
I answered, or I talked to them before.
About 7 months before?
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Bogan?
Thank you. Ma'am, as you testified, you met Mr. Mark Redwine in 1982, correct?
Yes, sir.
Married from 1984 until 1990.
Yes, sir.
So this camping trip that you speak of happened between, I presume, 82 and 90, or probably between 84 and 90, correct?
Correct.
Because the children were still very young.
Correct.
Right. So we're talking about a statement over 30 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And that's a statement that you didn't report to anyone until you heard news of Dylan going missing.
That's incorrect.
Nothing further, Judge.
Any follow-up?
Who else did you report it to?
I know I've talked to, I guess I'm confused on when did I report it to or who did I report
You know,
it
I'm not,
to.
I don't want you to answer.
I mean,
Just
over
hold
30.
hold on, please,
Oh.
okay? You know, it's like when I talk, everybody has to be quiet,
I
okay?
apologize.
All right? It's okay. So, I'm afraid, because I'm not sure anybody knows what this answer is, that I don't want you to say it in front of the jury. So I'm gonna tell you to be quiet, all right, about this. Anything else?
One last question. Was it the fact that Dylan was a missing child and was last with the defendant that made you remember this statement?
Yes, sir.
No more questions, Judge.
Anything from the jury? Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Judge. Okay, you're free to go, or you can stay, whatever you want to do. Next witness?
The people call Brandy Flan to the stand.
All right. And Ms. Flan, before you sit down, would you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Have a seat.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello.
Can you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Brandy Flan,
Can you spell your first and last name
Sure.
for the record?
BRANDIEFLANN.
Great. What do you do, ma'am?
I currently am at Bank of San Juan's. I'm the Executive Vice President over operations.
Were you ever employed with the Pine River Valley Bank?
I was.
What was your role there?
I was Senior Vice President, Chief Operations Officer.
What does that entail?
Daily operations of overseeing the branch, the bank.
Okay.
Okay, but you do have to speak up a little bit because
Sure.
you're not carrying, okay?
Got
They have to hear you.
There you go. And you can pull that microphone closer or move your chair in, whatever suits you. Were you responsible for helping to maintain the bank records for the various accounts?
I was.
Would it be fair to describe you as one of the custodians of the records of the bank?
Yes.
Were you ever asked to produce or interpret bank records relating to Mark Redwine's accounts at the Pine River Valley Bank?
I was.
And if you saw those records again, would you recognize them?
Yes.
One moment, please, if I may approach with Exhibit 453.
You may.
And I'm going to need.
Okay. And Mr. Shan, I don't know, would that be good to put in the notebook also? He's got that sleeve we can steal from him. Okay.
And Judge, I am going to object to the admission and publication of this, and I can
Well,
tell the
you
court
can-
why.
You can do it at the time they admit it? I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Put it on your radar, Judge.
All right. Okay, that was 453, Mr. Champagne? Yeah.
Oh, I'm supposed to be approaching you. Can you take a look at those briefly and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes.
Okay. Are those the bank records you produced in this case for Mark Redwine's bank accounts at Pine River Valley Bank?
Yes.
Were those records produced at or near the time that you were requested to produce them?
And you would,
Sure. How did it come to pass that you were asked to produce these records? Do you recall?
I was probably given a subpoena regarding bank records.
Okay. And did you then go ahead and produce the records that were sought?
Correct.
Okay. And are you the person that actually took those steps and did that work?
No, my team would have done that and then given it to me to review and then turn over.
Okay. Did you in fact do that in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Are records like these kept as part of the regular business activities of Pine River Valley Bank?
Yes.
And are you in charge of keeping some of these records?
Yes.
All of the records in this packet?
Yes.
Okay. Move to introduce, Your Honor.
Now you can object.
Object and permission to approach, because I'm going to get into facts, Judge, that
All right.
Your Honor, if I can just have one moment, please.
You may.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And before you start, I need to talk to both of you again. It's just a housekeeping matter. Yeah, we probably ought to. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Champagne.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, I move to introduce exhibit number 453, subject to the changes that we discussed at the bench.
With that one change, it'll be admitted.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Actually, it's not a change, it's a redaction.
A redaction, that's correct. Move to publishing.
You may.
All right. And let me give these to you, Ms. Flam, so you can use them. It's also going to be on the big screen. What are these documents, ma'am? What are these documents?
This first one that you have up is the account agreement between the bank and the customer.
Okay, and just in general, just big picture, what are we talking about here?
When you open an account, this is the agreement that you sign stating this is, you open this particular account and who the signers, owners, all the information regarding the customer.
That's large enough so the jury can see it. Okay, who are the owners on this account?
On this account, it's Dylan Redwine and Mark Redwine.
And do we see the date that this bank account was created?
This was opened on July 31st, 2012.
And the signatures on the account?
Yes,
Okay, that's both the owner's signatures?
correct.
And this is the standard paperwork you use anytime you open a bank account, right?
That's correct.
Okay, at this time, back in 2012.
Correct.
Is that the account number there, the ending in 3442, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Were there any other owners on this bank account besides Mark Redwine and Dylan Redwine?
No,
What type of an account was this?
this was a free checking account.
Okay. And was there an initial deposit that was associated to this account?
Based on the documentation, it looks like $200.06.
Bear with me, is that on the second page here?
Correct, I'm sorry.
And we're seeing that up on the big screen where it says no frills checking, describes the account number and then the initial deposit.
Correct.
Okay. July 31st, 2012, the account is opened. When you're an owner on an account, what does that mean?
It means all parties have 100% access to these funds, or to the account itself.
Okay. Can anybody else access these funds except for the owner?
No,
Were there any ATM cards issued to this account?
based on the documentation, yes.
Okay. And I'm
Witness, tell us what page on the documentation, like,
Sure.
it's just in the exhibit, I flipped through 2 or 3.
It's on page number 4 in this package.
Thank you.
And it may be helpful, Ms. Flan, what you'll see is on the bottom right corner of those pages, there's another number. It should be in the 18,000. Do you see that number on there? It may not be on their printed copy. And that's fine. So page 4.
Okay.
Does the page you're looking at look like there's one up on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. And let's just go ahead and take a look on that page. How can you tell that there was an ATM card issued to this account?
Sure. On the bottom, the last part of this document where it says card,
Okay.
that tells me that there was a card and,
And there's a pointer that's right next to you there on the witness stand. It extends.
Okay.
And there's a microphone right behind you. And I'm going to ask you, if you're comfortable, to come down and just point to the screen while we're looking over some of these records so that the jurors can know where to direct their attention. And you're welcome to take the microphone off the stand there, and it just slides right out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Now, can you point the jurors' attention to what you're talking about?
Sure. So right here, it says there's a card issued. And it was to Dylan.
Okay, and let me just scroll up a little bit here. Oh, that's the name on the account for the card?
That's the name on the card, correct?
The name on the card, Dylan Redwine, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. When was that card issued? Can you tell from here? And I can scroll up or down as needed. And you may also want to bring the exhibit down from the witness stand if that helps you find it. Or return, yeah, you can return it if you like.
Based on this particular page, it doesn't tell me.
Okay. Are you able to determine that from other records, or would it have been back in those early pages?
So the next page, page 5 here, this one does tell me at the bottom that this card was issued in July.
Okay, I've got that up on the screen. Am I showing the correct information to the jury right now, or do I need to scroll down?
No, you are. You're
Okay.
correct.
And can you point that out for us, just so that they can see where to look?
Yes. So here it tells me these are 2-year terms, so this was opened in July, it was expired in 2014.
Okay, does that mean it was open then in July of 2012, or issued then?
Correct.
Okay, great. Do you remember what these cards look like? If I showed you the card, would you recognize it?
You showed me, yes.
Okay. You're going to have to bear with me because it is somewhere in this pile of evidence, so hold on just a second. Look at that. Not bad. I've got exhibit 251 here. Can you take a look at that?
Yeah.
Does that look like one of the card issued?
It does.
Okay. Were there any other cards issued on this account, ATM cards?
Based on this documentation, no.
Okay. So that's the one and only card issued to this account. Is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
Thank you. Are you able to tell from the documents in front of you in that exhibit whether this card was ever activated? And I can direct your attention to a few pages further down. Maybe horizontal printed pages in your packet.
So based on this card activity report, the card was not activated.
Okay, and I want to make sure we're looking at the same page, so just bear with me.
Okay.
Is this the page that you're looking at, ma'am?
It is.
Help me understand what this page is telling you.
Sure. So this page tells me that the card was attempted to be activated, but over here,
Please do. And if you'd like me to zoom in a little bit more, if that would be helpful.
I'm good.
Okay.
So here it tells me that these were attempts to activate the card, but they were denied because the information was entered incorrectly.
And so, can you give us the dates on the far left side of that, please?
Sure. So September 3rd of 2012.
And what does the next column over say after the time? You see there's words printed there? I think
Right here?
Yes.
Tells me that the PIN number was attempted to be used to activate the card.
Okay, so
Or a
this,
PIN number.
is it fair to describe this as the initial attempt to use the card or early attempts to activate the card?
Correct.
And I think many of us are familiar with that concept, right? When you get a card in the mail, you have to activate it first. And at the time, at Pine River Valley Bank, if you had a debit card, did you have to put in special information at that first attempt to activate the card?
At this time, the cards were sent out in the mail, so you weren't given the card at the time you opened your account. It was mailed to you, and then the PIN number was mailed separately.
Okay. And how do those two things interact in order to activate one's account?
We can use the PIN number to actually activate.
And what would happen if you did not put in the correct number?
Sure. After the third attempt, it would lock the card up.
Okay. And do we see that in these records?
Right here, tells me the card is locked.
And that's actually literally what it says, card locked.
Correct.
Is that also that same day, the September 3rd date?
Correct.
Okay. Would it be fair to characterize all these attempts on the September 3rd as someone attempting to activate the card and failing?
Correct.
And can you just read off the first and last time of that range of attempts?
Sure. The first one was September 3rd, 2012 at 6:05 p.m. And the last one was September 3rd, 2012 at 6:12 p.m.
Okay, it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attempts in that time range,
Correct.
and then your system locks the card out.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Now, a little bit further down below the next line there, the next black line, what do we see?
It looks like, again, trying to use the card, but the card still says, that it's actually locked at this time.
Okay, those are also in that same time period, September 3rd?
That's correct.
6:15 and 6:16, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then do we shift to a different day?
And the next three attempts were on 9/4/2012,
Okay.
and these all state that the PIN was still invalid.
Okay. And what I'd like to do is just go down a little bit further, and we're sort of still in the same vein here. What do we see on this page?
This is another attempt on 9/16/2012, and the card is in a locked status.
Okay. So this is another failed attempt to use the card.
That's correct.
And that's the 16th of September. What's the time on that?
5:05 p.m.
Okay. Thank you so much. Are you able to determine if this card was ever activated or used?
So back on page 5,
Okay.
this one basically tells me the status. It has been in a PIN error, so it was never activated.
Okay, and let me just make sure I can display that to the jury so we can see it. Can you show the jury what you're talking about here?
So right here, it tells me the status was in a PIN error. So
PIN
the
error.
card was never in an active status.
So this card never got activated?
Correct.
Okay. And are you able to tell if there was ever another card issued for this account or another, like, replacement, duplicate, anything like that?
Based on page 4, this tells me there was only the one card.
And that's the documentation that we actually looked at earlier, I think, right?
Correct.
Like right here where I'm highlighting. Right there. Is that right?
Which page in the document is that?
Page 4,
The fourth page.
actually, it's towards the bottom, right there, on the card. There's only the one card activated, or I'm
Okay.
sorry, issued.
Okay. I want to just sort of shift shift topics just very slightly with you. These are the records related to the joint account between Mark and Dylan, is that correct?
That's correct.
You described that on the 16th of September, there was an attempt, the final attempt, it appears, to activate the card. Is that right?
Correct.
Were you ever able to determine where that occurred?
I believe I did.
And I know in those documents, as I recall, you actually wrote down some notes.
Objection, Judge. referring to the redaction, and I'm objecting to this question under foundation.
You know, you can do that, I guess. Technically, you're correct. However, do you remember on your own as to where it was attempted
On
to
my
be
own?
activated?
No.
Would looking at notes that you wrote help refresh your memory?
Yes.
She's allowed to do that. It's not going to go to the jury. That's the part that was objected to. Go ahead.
So there is a page in
I'd,
here.
I'd ask that she be asked if she remembers and not that she read.
Right,
from
so you're not
the
allowed to,
document.
ma'am, you're not allowed to read it off,
Oh, okay.
but if it jogs your memory or refreshes your recollection, then you're allowed to discuss it. If it doesn't, that's fine too.
Wait, it's my handwriting, but that's all I can tell you.
Okay. Do you recall the attempt to figure it out? Do you recall taking the steps to do that?
No.
Okay, that's fine, we'll move on. Were there other accounts included in these records? And specifically the personal account that was owned only by Mark Redwine?
Yes.
Okay. And are you able to determine, did that have a different account number than the joint account?
It does.
Okay. Within the banking system, at Pine River Valley Bank at the time, if someone had more than one account at your bank, is it possible to transfer money between accounts if you're the owner on both accounts?
Yes.
And would Mark Redwine have been able to transfer monies between the joint account that he and Dylan owned and the personal account that he owned?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to inquire of you whether you see an entry on the joint account transferring money to the single owner account owned by Mike Redwine on January 28th of 2013.
Owned by who?
Money from the joint account to the singly owned account by Mark Redwine. Am I making sense?
Yes. On
Okay.
what date again, I'm sorry?
January 28th, 2013, and I can refer you specifically, I think it's perhaps page 6. Let's see here. Page 7.
Yes.
And tell us, can you describe, well, let me see. You said, is that the right page?
That
Page
is.
7? Do you see that now there on the large screen?
I do.
Okay, and if you can point that out for the jury and describe that transfer for us?
Sure. Last one right here. And
Okay.
based on this, it tells me that it was a scheduled transfer for $2,000.
What was the balance prior to that transfer?
600.
I'm sorry, that doesn't quite make sense to me.
Can you go up a little bit?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. This page doesn't tell me the balance, it just tells me the debits and the credits that went in.
Okay, well, we see a series.
How long are you going to be?
I'm literally almost done. This is the last set of questions I have.
Okay.
We see a series of deposits into this account, is that right? Starts with 206, 600, 600, 600, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the balance then is $2,006. Is that correct? sorry, $2,000.06.
Correct.
Okay. And then you see the transfer on January 28th, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what was the amount of the transfer?
2,000.
Leaving a balance of 6 cents, is that correct?
That's correct. That's what it's right here,
I see.
on that particular day, yeah.
Okay. And so on January 28th, Mark Redwine transferred the $2,000, leaving a balance of only 6 cents,
That's correct.
January 28th.
Asked and answered. Document speaks for itself.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, you're overruled, but that's what it says, so.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, I hate to do this to you, Ms. Flynn, but the jury has to go at 5:15, and so you haven't done cross-examination yet, so you gotta come back tomorrow morning, okay? But we'll be happy to see you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please remember my admonitions, do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else during the course of the trial. Do not initiate, post, or respond to anything about this case on social media. Keep an open mind throughout the trial. Reach your decision only during your deliberations. Don't talk to anybody about the case. If they do over your objections, let me know. Don't gather any information on your own. Don't do any research or look on social media. With that, we'll have you back hopefully at 10 to 8. Be a short day tomorrow, and hopefully there won't be as many interruptions as we had today. So, everybody rise for the jury. Okay, and Ms. Flynn, get here. We'll start a couple minutes after 8. Okay? Thanks. So you're free to go. So anything before we, anything for the record before we go? All right. We'll be in recess. Thank you. You too.
Good luck for that code. I'll get you back.
She heard it. Okay, shall we go through it?
Mr. Rogan, we're under the impression that we already used it.
All right. All right. So, where do you want to start? Right, it's admitted.
Yeah, I'm confident with it.
What, you? No, that one still isn't.